back again. We're back again. So let me recap some of this in case you may have missed it, because I know the internet doesn't like me talking about this apparently, which is why I'm getting disconnected from the internet. So let me say it again. We're watching people with the CDC. They're saying that this is an imminent crisis. And what's the answer that we're getting? Well, it's a crisis because 7 people are involved, because students are involved. But yet, when we look at the number of auto accidents because of drunk driving, 10,497 people, according to the CDC in 2016, died. We don't hear about banning cars. We don't hear about banning alcohol. We know that there are unknown numbers of at least 13% increase in the number of people who are driving while high. I don't hear about banning marijuana. Matter of fact, I hear people talking about they need to increase the amount of marijuana that's available to the public, which seems counterproductive since that is on the rise. Driving while intoxicated. Look at the numbers in Colorado and Washington. That is on the rise. People are dying because of this, and more than 7 of them. And you have to ask yourself, isn't that something that should be banned? If we're looking for the government to do something, to protect us, to save the public. But they're not. Instead, they're going actually the opposite way. They're trying to get more people to use THC. They're making it legal. So there's a question there. There's a big problem there. There's a big issue there. A big issue there. And so I have to wonder about that. And as I was about to say, there's over 5,000 people who have been quarantined by ICE. That's a fact. That was found in CNN Politics. That was reported on June 14th of 2019. Shouldn't we stop illegal aliens from coming into the nation since we have to worry about mumps and measles and chicken pox? We're not. So let me bring this back to how does this connect to guns, though, Mike? Because you started off saying, well, this is what's happening with guns. Well, the first thing is to understand is in each of these cases, the government is deciding. We're saying, oh, my God, the government must do something, and we're giving up our rights, our freedoms. And we're telling the government, do something. And politicians they're doing things that they want, that are in their best interest, that fits their political agenda, not necessarily taking care of you or taking care of the issue, which is why they're very selective on the issues that they decide to say they want to take care of. They're not trying to ban cars. They're not trying to ban alcohol. They're increasing the amount of marijuana that's available to people because they like those issues. They want you to have those things. They want you to be able to have those freedoms. And they know that if you said, no, you can't do that, that the public would freak out. But they are willing to say that, you know what, you don't get a choice in healthcare. If you don't believe me, look at Bernie Sanders' Medicaid for All bill. And what you're going to see in that, as highlighted by Senator Amy Klobuchar, page 8, I believe it was paragraph 2, 149 million people will lose their choice in health care because Bernie Sanders and the Democratic Socialists don't want you to have it. That's what they say. Everyone will lose their health care because they don't want you to have it, because they're going to do something for you. They're going to make it better for you, because that's what government does. And we look at that, and let's put it back into context again, going back to firearms. Well, people die. Oh my goodness. Oh no, it's so terrible. We have to ban Beto O'Rourke. We're going to take your AR-15s. We're going to take your AK-47s. That's what the government is saying. That's what the Democrats and the Democratic Socialists and Progressives are saying. They're going to take your property because the government is going to do something. Because the government's going to help you. They're going to protect you. Do you remember that during Columbine, there was an assault ban at that time? It didn't stop the Columbine shooting. Bombs are illegal, always, since 1934 and the National Firearms Act of 1934. Bombs are illegal. And yet, Islamberg, New York, this year, I believe it was April, 4 kids were making bombs to blow up Islamberg, New York. The fact that they were illegal didn't prevent anyone. The number of people, the majority of all shootings in this nation are suicides. We don't hear help for those. Where's the national outcry to stop the 22 veterans that die every day from suicide because they need help? What about the others who die from suicide? What about the roughly 23,000 Americans who die, 23,000 Americans who die every year because of suicide by a firearm? Where's our outreach for them? Isn't that a crisis? 23,000 people versus 7? Shouldn't we be doing something about that? Well, that's not important because it doesn't fit the agenda that's being presented to us. An agenda that says that government must do something. And the things that government must do must be more and more progressive, more and more socialist, more and more in line with a very specific fringe part of a political party. And thus, e-cigarettes are being treated exactly the same as people with guns because they're not getting due process. No one asked them this. We don't even know if it's correct. We don't know what the connection is between e-cigarettes and vaping and the people who are having the lung conditions. The study isn't done. We don't know the answer, but yet the crisis is here and we have to stop it even though we don't know what started it. We don't know what it is. It could be all kinds of different things. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I can't tell you. But I can also tell you no one else knows. The CDC doesn't know. They have no idea. But yet it's a crisis. And e-cigarette users lose their freedom to choose, their freedom to make a choice in their lives because some politician said, you don't get to choose. You don't have that right because they're doing something. We know that all of the e-cigarette users, the vapors, are being treated exactly the same as 7 people. 7 people died. All e-cigarette users are now affected. All of them are the same. You're all in the same category. Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter where you live. Doesn't matter about your lifestyle. Doesn't matter about your health choices. Nothing else matters. Your genetics, nothing else matters except that you use e-cigarettes. So you have to be treated just like everyone else in that category because you have an issue. You are endangered. Kind of like the way they treat guns. There's 5 people who commit, on average, every year, actually, to be more exact, about 20 mass shootings a year. But yet every gun owner, 160 million people, must be guilty as well. And they have to be punished. And they have to lose their choices. Because even though 99.999%, literally 99.999% of gun owners are legal, law-abiding gun owners who have no problem, that's okay. They have to be treated badly. Remember, this is every other person in America. There's 330 million people in America. Half of America owns firearms, but half of America must be treated without rights and freedoms because 20 people decide to misuse that right. 10,000 people misuse the right, almost 11,000 people misuse the right of driving, and yet we don't see that cars are being banned or alcohol being banned. In fact, and for those hundreds of people, there are hundreds of cases per year in Colorado and in Washington state where driving under the influence of marijuana have caused accidents. We don't hear people saying, well, you have to ban marijuana. No, in fact, they're going the exact opposite route and saying that you have to allow more of it. That's got to be scary. And there's no due process for the e-cigarette users. They don't have anyone to go to and say, well, that's not fair. Why are you taking my right to choose? Why are you taking this away from me? It isn't affecting my life. I'm not causing anyone else harm. Why are you taking away my freedom? Who do they go to? The government? The government's the one who said you can't do it. Do they have to go to the courts and spend the next 7 years trying to figure it out on something that no one knows what the cause is? I Imagine if this was back in the days of AIDS, and someone said, well, all people who are gay, since some people are gay and they've got AIDS, then we have to ban them all. Matter of fact, I think some people tried to say that at the time, and there was a national outrage. How dare you say that? Because just because they're gay doesn't mean that every single one of them has AIDS. That is ridiculous, and you shouldn't treat them that way. Why are we doing that to gun owners? Why are we doing that to people who vape? Why are we taking away people's freedom and choice? Especially when we have no reason to understand or believe that we should do that. That terrifies me. And when I'm looking at this, and we know this is happening, and the media is telling us it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we are banning vaping and taking away people's choices. Because there is a crisis that has affected 7 people, possibly affecting another 380 people across the nation after 13 years of use. It's a crisis. So it's a good thing because government is doing something. Really? Is that really good when you think about it? Because what does something mean? Besides, apparently, taking away people's due process, taking away their freedom and choice, lumping people together as one big group just because someone says, well, I think you're all together. You're all the same. How is that not discriminatory? In the same way that it's discriminatory to gun owners. You're all the same. That one person did something. That one person used a firearm badly. A criminal at that. Look at Philadelphia. A repeated criminal who is banned by law, could not own a firearm, got the firearm illegally, and is in a shootout with police for hours, dozens of hours. And they're trying to say, well, he's the same thing as the 160 million lawful gun owners. Really? And the gun is the problem. The problem is the gun. The gun somehow ran up and got into the hands of that criminal, that repeat criminal, that felon, and it forced him to hold off police while he was committing felonies and to hold off the police because it was the gun's fault. Does that sound ridiculous? Because that's the argument that's being made, and it is ridiculous. Just like saying that, oh, you're a 40-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 50-year-old e-cigarette user for the last decade. Oops, sorry. You're at fault. There's a problem here. E-cigarettes, it's a problem. You have to stop. The government said so because the government is doing something. I am troubled because this tactic is being used over and over and over again. E-cigarettes are not the problem. The government is the problem. The government being used by certain fringe groups to achieve a political gain is the problem. And we should be very scared about it. Because we're seeing it happen with firearms in the Second Amendment. And you say, well, I don't own a gun, so it doesn't affect me. It affects your neighbor. But more importantly, okay, you say that. Well, and what about health care? You don't get a choice. You're going to lose if Medicare for all goes through, if single payer health care goes through, you lose your health insurance. You don't get to have the insurance that you have now. You don't get to have the health care that you have now. You get to get what someone else approves of. And we're going to say, well, I don't have health care. I'm part of the 27 million people who still don't have health care, and you don't want it. Or maybe you say, well, I can adjust. I can live with less health care coverage. I can live with not being able to have treatment that is actually good for me, but the same as what everyone else gets. Okay, fine. That's what you want to say. Maybe you say, oh, I don't use e-cigarettes. I don't vape, so it doesn't affect me. Let me ask you, this chain is happening. We keep saying government has to do something, government saying it has to do something, and it does things that restricts the freedoms of individuals without any due process or recourse. And I have to ask you, how long until it's going to hit something that does affect you? What will you say when it's finally your turn and something that they're using is going to affect your life? After they've taken away guns, which, we saw what happens when you take away the guns in Venezuela. We saw it in North Korea and China. But let's say, forget that. What happens when we've already had people who have guns have been affected, people who vape have been affected, people with their health care have been affected. We're going to see people who, in other groups, you're black, you're white, you're straight, you're whatever it may be. What happens when it's your turn? When those same fringe politicians decide they're going to do something, and they're going to put the label of, it's for your best interest, and they come after you, what are you going to do then? Because then you'll be shouting and you'll be screaming and you'll be on the internet like I am right now, and there won't be anyone else left around. No one's going to have the power to help you. We need to do things about this now. We need to raise questions about this now. I understand it's good to help people. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm not saying vaping is the answer. But I am saying there is a trend here, and the trend is troubling, and the trend is growing. It's very subtle because it's not announced as, we're the government, we're going to take away your rights. But that is what they're doing. It's not being said that, hey, we're the government, we're going to do something and take away your freedom. But that's what they're doing. We have to be worried about what they're doing. Because when they say do something, I don't think the right answer is take away your freedom, take away your choice. That really shouldn't be the first answer by government. That's not their job. In fact, that's not what the Constitution allows them to do. But the people who have the power, you and I, if we say nothing, we give them that power. And that really shouldn't happen. Especially not as the first thing that they decide to do. The first thing they come up with is, let's take away your freedom and choice. Do you really want a government that's making that decision every day? The first choice they make is take away your freedom and your choice? Because it's going to happen, and it is happening, and you will be next. Because the people who are being affected by vaping, the people who are going to be affected by healthcare are the same people who are affected by the Second Amendment, and the same people who are going to be affected by government saying, tomorrow, we're going to do something. We're the government, and it will be for your best interest, and it never is. But these are my thoughts on it. I hope the internet finally decided that I could say what I have to say. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear your comments. Please reach out to us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Let us hear your thoughts about this. If you want to help me get a better computer system, so that'll help a little bit, and get a better connection to the internet, please donate. But other than that, I look forward to hearing from you. I respond to all comments, and I'm looking to hear from you. I want to hear and read yours. So I'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.